Number 8. Mark Dixie. In the mid-2000s, London teenager Sally Ann Bowman was in the early stage of a promising modeling career. Others in the industry had compared her to supermodel Kate Moss, and in January of 2005, she joined Pulse Model Management, subsequently becoming the face of Swatch watches. On September the 24th of that year, she went out with a group of friends to Lloyd's Bar in Croydon. In the early hours of the following day, the 18-year-old called her ex-boyfriend to pick her up after her older sister had reportedly been arrested for fighting. Bowman and her ex had a heated argument inside the car, and at around 4 a.m., she got out near her Blenheim Crescent residence while the man drove off. Within minutes, Bowman was brutally stabbed in the neck and stomach. The teenager was then assaulted, as she was either dead or dying, before the killer made off with her cardigan, underwear, handbag, and cell phone. The ex-boyfriend was taken into custody as the primary suspect before he was eventually ruled out based on DNA evidence. In June of 2006, the police arrested Croydon man Mark Dixie, whom it later emerged was a registered offender. The 35-year-old had provided the authorities with a DNA sample after he'd been arrested following a pub brawl a few weeks earlier. The sample definitively tied him to Bowman. He only admitted to the assault, claiming he'd found her on the ground and didn't know she'd been stabbed. It only took a jury 3 hours to convict him on the charge of murder. On February the 22nd of 2008, he was sentenced to life with a mandatory 34 years, one of the longest minimum terms ever imposed upon a single murderer in the UK. Number 7. Russell Marsh. After months of being unhappy in her marriage, Jade Ward asked her husband Russell Marsh to leave their North Wales home in August of 2021. There had been periods of separation followed by reconciliation in their relationship in the past. Some of the rifts were reportedly fueled by Marsh's controlling and paranoid behavior, but 27-year-old Ward was reportedly determined to end the marriage for good and move on with her life. On August the 26th, as their 4 children slept, Marsh entered the Shotton home using the key he still had in his possession. In what would later be described as a brutal and remarkably cruel murder, he disfigured Ward with a knife and then fatally strangled her. In the immediate aftermath, he drove the children to his parents' house in Colchester before surrendering to the police. They found the woman's body dumped under a pile of clothes in a room that had been sealed with a dressing gown cord. 29-year-old Marsh would maintain that her injuries and death had been the result of a sadomasochistic game gone wrong. He claimed that Ward had asked that he strangle her while they were having consensual relations, before later stating that she'd cut up her face and taunted him. His version of events was dismissed as falsehoods and slurs by the judge presiding over his case. Marsh was found guilty of murder and sentenced to a minimum of 25 years in prison. Number 6. Abby Watson. In February of 2018, Welsh woman Abby Watson and her boyfriend were at a pub in Newport, where the former was involved in a brutal altercation with another woman. Watson's boyfriend had lost his wallet, and the couple asked 26-year-old trainee beautician Demi Marshall if she'd seen it. The innocuous question enraged the woman, who started screaming at Watson. When the latter went to confront her, Marshall smashed a wine glass on the bar and in a split second forcefully pushed it into Watson's face before dragging it across her cheek. The victim began bleeding profusely and passed out, causing her boyfriend to fear for her life. While she waited for an ambulance, others in the pub started wrapping coats around her, as due to the shock, she'd begun shaking uncontrollably. Watson received 2 blood transfusions and at least 65 stitches during an operation to mend her severe face wounds. She had also suffered an eye injury and a fractured cheekbone in the attack. The 22-year-old experienced extensive mental anguish during her recovery after being left with large scars on her face. The woman reportedly felt like her life is over, started taking antidepressants, suffered from nightmares, and took down the mirrors in her house so as to avoid reliving her ordeal. Marshall was subsequently found guilty of wounding with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Number 5. Nicholas Foy. After consuming a life-threatening amount of alcohol and cocaine, an Englishman stabbed a French tourist to death in Eltham, southeast London, on August 11th of 2017. Accomplished triathlete Laurent Volpe, aged 49, was on a 2-week holiday with his wife and 2 children. He stepped outside to get some food when Nicholas Foy, a man in his late 30s, started following him. Foy, who was only wearing a pair of pink shorts at the time, plunged a large kitchen knife into Volp's stomach in a random and unprovoked attack. The blade punctured the Frenchman's liver. He was taken to King's College Hospital, where he passed away 3 days later in spite of having received a liver transplant. In the immediate aftermath, Foy shouted at witnesses, "Do you want some?" before he was captured by CCTV, fleeing the scene of the stabbing. He was approached by law enforcement shortly thereafter and punched an officer before he was subdued with a taser. He was taken to a hospital for self-inflicted injuries to his foot, which he'd gouged with the knife, believing there was a bomb inside. While at the medical facility, Foy headbutted another officer before he was sedated by staff. During the trial that followed, he blamed his behavior on the drugs and alcohol binge, but was ultimately ordered to serve a minimum of 17 years in prison. Number 4. Graham Williamson. In August of 2020, Scottish man Graham Kermit Williamson was gunned down in the garden of his property in Blantyre, South Lanarkshire, in what was deemed as retaliation for a humiliating video. A few days prior to the shooting on August the 14th, convicted drug dealer Hardman Felvis had been confronted by Williamson and his friends at the Shanghai Tea House in nearby Bothwell. He was filmed hiding under tables and calling the police. The clip was distributed on Instagram, and 25-year-old Felvis would later admit in court he'd felt embarrassed as it damaged his street reputation. A short while after the confrontation, Williamson's car was set on fire. Felvis teamed up with fellow reputed drug traffickers Thomas Durris and James Bailey, both in their late 20s. The trio rented a flat in Edinburgh as a meeting point, traveled to Glasgow, where they purchased balaclavas, and then used a stolen car with fake plates to approach Williamson's Blantyre residence. On August the 17th, Durris allegedly acted as the triggerman. CCTV footage captured him approaching Williamson from behind and shooting him in the back with a sawed-off shotgun. He then got into the getaway car driven by Bailey, and upon reaching Edinburgh, the three men reportedly boasted about the killing. All of their actions were subsequently retraced by law enforcement. The three men were arrested, found guilty of murder, and sentenced to life in prison, with minimum sentences of 23 years for Felvis and Durris, as well as 21 years for Bailey. Number 3. Lewis Ashdown. 19-year-old Lewis Ashdown and Mark Williams, aged 18, met up online in late 2020 and developed a friendship that resulted in them spending time together in Uckfield, East Sussex, where they both lived. On May the 29th of 2021, Ashdown asked the other teenager to meet him in Fair Warpfield. Once they were both there, he encouraged him to drink copious amounts of soda that had been mixed with whiskey. Williams became intoxicated to the point that he could no longer move properly. About half an hour before midnight, he called his aunt to say that he was heading home. Ashdown was reportedly overheard in the background saying, "Don't worry, I'll make sure he gets home okay." In the minutes that followed, he knifed Williams in the back. Ashdown continued stabbing him throughout the body and head, ultimately inflicting 107 puncture wounds. He gouged Williams' eyes out, mutilated his groin region, and repeatedly kicked him in the head. He then dumped his mangled body in a stream, and Williams was subsequently reported missing. Ashdown behaved normally the following day when he went to the cinema and watched the horror film The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, with friend Liam Hansen. Eventually, he and the latter got drunk on Jack Daniels, and Ashdown confessed that he'd killed Williams because he'd been annoying him. He showed Hansen several horrific cell phone clips of what he'd done to the victim, maintaining that he'd deserved to die. Ashdown was subsequently arrested and, after pleading guilty to murder, sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 27 years served. Today's topic was requested by SKS 2002, Thomas McKim, and Perplexy Blue. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Derek Bird. On June the 2nd of 2010, over a 15-mile stretch of coastline in Cumbria, England, taxi driver Derek Bird carried out one of the deadliest mass shootings in UK history. There was a combination of factors that had led to the 52-year-old's mental breakdown and ensuing killing spree. A Thai woman whom he'd met on holiday to Pattaya had ended their relationship via text message after he'd sent her over $1,000. He bore a grudge against his Sellafield nuclear power plant, from which he'd been terminated amidst allegations of theft. He was investigated for tax evasion and also involved in a will dispute with his twin brother David, who would become Bird's first victim. The man traveled to his brother's home and shot him 11 times in the head and body with a .22 caliber rifle. He then killed the family solicitor, Kevin Commons, whom he'd also held responsible for the ongoing legal dispute. Bird gunned him down with a sawed-off shotgun and then a rifle at his Frizzington residence. He then shot at several fellow taxi drivers, killing one and severely injuring another and his passenger. Bird's spree continued through several neighboring towns and partially unfolded with him calling random people to his taxi and then firing at them, alternating between his shotgun and rifle. As he drove towards Seascale, he reduced his speed and shot at other motorists. In the afternoon near the village of Boot, Bird crashed his taxi into a stone wall, damaging one of its tires and then continuing on foot. At around 2 p.m., the authorities announced that they'd found his body in a woodland area where he'd taken his own life. Throughout his rampage, Bird had claimed the lives of 12 people and injured 11 others. Number 1. Robert Maudsley. Robert Maudsley, one of the UK's most terrifying serial killers, was active in the 1970s and mainly targeted people who preyed on children. In 1974, when he was in his early 20s, Maudsley was working as a male escort in London to support his drug habit. He was picked up by a man named John Farrell in Wood Green, who proceeded to show him pictures of the children he'd assaulted. Maudsley, himself a victim of childhood abuse, killed Farrell by garrotting, stabbing, and smashing him over the head with a hammer. After surrendering to the police and being found unfit to stand trial, he was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for the criminally insane. It was there that in 1977, he and another resident, David Cheeseman, locked themselves in a room on their ward with convicted predator David Francis. They tortured the man for 9 hours, forcing others to hear his agonizing screams as they flayed him alive and cracked his skull open. The murderous pair then held his body aloft for the guards to see. A member of the security personnel would report that there was a plastic spoon sticking out of Francis's head. It led to rumors that Maudsley had eaten part of his brain, and he was henceforth known in the press as Hannibal the Cannibal or the Brain Eater. An autopsy confirmed that he'd never cannibalized the victim but had turned the spoon into a weapon, which he'd used to stab him in the brain through the ear. Maudsley was transferred to Wakefield Prison with the recommendation he never be released. The following year, he killed 2 inmates in one day. He lured Salney Darwood, a man convicted of assault and the murder of his wife, to his cell, where he garroted and fatally stabbed him with an improvised dagger. After hiding the body under his bed, Maudsley prowled the wing and cornered convicted molester William Roberts in his cell. He hacked his skull open before repeatedly slamming his head against the wall. Maudsley then calmly surrendered the dagger to prison officials, claiming they'd be 2 inmates short for the next roll call. Maudsley was permanently placed in an underground bulletproof perspex box, and as of 2022, updates had vowed to kill again if ever released. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live in the UK or the US? Let us know in the comments section below.